We do not consent.
Us to know that we have is that consciousness creates reality. And so when you look at the physics of how consciousness creates reality, this is not some metaphysical metaphor. There are physical mechanisms for this happening. And when you understand those mechanisms, the energy that creates these problems, that creates the consciousness that develops these problems, the opposite polarities of those energies also simultaneously create the solutions, always. Always. Forever and ever. 2,000 years ago. Today. 100 years from now. It's like whatever crazy crap that these insane people come up with, there will always be solutions for them. Because consciousness creates reality. There are already people on this planet that have solutions for all this stuff. I'm one of them, but there are many, many others. And so all you have to do when you understand that is seek them out. Seek out the solutions. What most people do when they find out about this stuff is they get depressed and they get in victimhood because that's how they've been programmed to be, or I should say mind controlled to be. And they go, oh, woe is me, gosh, it's horrible, I wish I could do something. Well, you can. If you truly get that you create your reality, then you never get into victimhood and you just search for the answers and you find them. So with that said, there is a whole new class of supplements that are coming out that are really cool. I call them Ormus homeopathics. And they are waters that have monoatomic minerals in them that are programmed with frequencies. Now, what does that mean? And by the way, we've got some folks right across from my table outside there selling Ormus products. I highly recommend you check them out and listen to some of the stories that they tell, because this is one of our silver bullets for these kinds of crazy toxins that are coming out. But Ormus is just an acronym, orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements. And that just means there are certain minerals or certain elements on the periodic chart. The platinum group for you geeks, it's the platinum group metals, gold, silver, mercury, copper. They normally exist as metals, and what makes them look and appear like metals, being silvery and or shiny and solid, metallic looking, is that their atoms are bound together in some kind of three-dimensional grid. And that three-dimensional grid gives them their appearance. Well, you can run them through certain processes like photosynthesis, like fermentation, like vortexing them in water in magnetic fields, and you can break them down into individual atoms. And when you break them down into individual atoms, they no longer appear to be metals, they look like white ceramic powders. There are many legends and stories about this throughout time, about white powder of gold and manna and things like this. And this is what this stuff is. You can make it yourself. Nature makes it all the time. It's made naturally in plants, and animals ingest them. So if you've got these platinum group metals and gold and silver and mercury and copper in your soil, microbes will eat them and break them down into these monoatomics, and plants will then uptake them. So if you're living like I am in Florida, where you don't have a lot of these minerals in the soil, you can use volcanic rock powders to feed the soil, and these plants can uptake them. And that's exactly what I do. And I've been working with people that are growing food with monoatomics of various kinds and getting insane amounts of growth. For example, tomato plants in Texas. Texas soil is very rich in minerals, especially these Ormus minerals, but it's not bioavailable. Well, this company developed a product, which I can't tell you, unfortunately, because they've had attempts on their life. But I will tell you about it in these slides. I'm just not going to tell you which one it is. So if you use these supplements in these slides, you'll bump into it. But they put this stuff on soil in Texas on tomato farms, and they wound up getting 15-foot high tomato plants with 3,000 to 4,000 nutrient-dense tomatoes per vine. So the argument that organics can't feed the world is a bunch of nonsense, particularly when you know about Ormus. And these Ormus supplements that are being sold outside, you can use them for growing food. And I do this routinely. You know, I sprout, and I have hydroponic tower gardens at my house that I grow food with, and I also grow out in the soil, and all of it gets fed Ormus, all of it. When you see, for example, in Hawaii, you see seeds growing into plants and trees directly off of lava rock. There's no soil there. How is it that they do that? It's these superconducting minerals. They are very high in lava and volcanic rock. So volcanic rock powders, volcanic ash, they're extremely high in these very regenerative mineral powders. And you can buy them really cheap, and you can put them on your soil, you can feed them to plants, you can put them in ferments, and you can feed them to yourself. It's one of the things I have on that downloads page are instructions on how to make your own probiotic, and you can throw rock powders into it and make your own Ormus medicines, which you can then heal yourself with. So anyway, this class of supplements, these Ormus homeopathics, they've got these superconducting minerals in them, and they act, these minerals act like antennas for this faster than light subtle energy that's around us all the time. Scientists now are calling it scalar energy. It's gone by many other names: chi, prana, life force, orgone, tachyon energy, 0-point energy, whatever you want to call it. It's superluminal light that's zooming through the cosmos all the time, and it passes through the particles of matter, and it's around us all the time. It's like the Force in Star Wars, and you can use it. You can grab it and tap it and do things with it, including healing or restructuring matter and restructuring electromagnetic radiation. Human cells do this naturally all the time in the body using these Ormus elements. So it's been discovered that you can take water and put these superconducting minerals in them and program them with scalar energy of certain frequencies, and they will then radiate out those frequencies. And those frequencies, because they're scalar waves, and scalar waves create matter, this whole three-dimensional universe that we're in is created from this scalar energy zipping through the cosmos, slowing down and turning into this 3D reality. I'm going to show you more evidence of this in a minute. So you can, since it can modify matter and electromagnetic energy, you can program these waters with these monoatomic minerals, and in this case, this rad detox, they've been programmed with all the anti-frequencies of all known radioactive elements. So when you ingest it, it neutralizes radioactivity in the body. It literally alters the matter in your body and neutralizes radioactivity. It also is very, very good for protection against EMF. I am fortunate, I live out in the country on 5 acres, and I don't have any wireless technology around me. But even just the wiring and stuff like that, and even radar guns from airports and stuff, we all get dosed with it. And so once I started taking this and I was getting these skio sessions, I wasn't surprised, but the skio practitioner was very surprised to see how low my EMF levels were after taking this stuff. So this is some really phenomenal stuff. Nanozeolites are also one that everyone should be taking every day. Nanozeolites are different than powdered zeolites, micronized zeolites, rock powders. These are broken up. The zeolites are a mineral that's formed when hot lava hits ocean water or underground water. And when it does that, it shocks it, and it creates these little geodesic domes, these little atomic scale geodesic domes. And those geodesic domes have a very strong negative charge in them. So when you ingest them, they will go into the body and they will latch on to any positively charged particles in the body. Now it just so happens that pathogens and parasites and free radicals have a positive charge in the body. And so they go into the body, and because they're nanoscale, they're actually small enough they can go anywhere in the body that water can go. They can go into the brain, and they can pull heavy metals out of the brain or anywhere in the body. They can pull out these radioactive elements. They can pull out pathogens and toxins of all kinds, heavy metals. And so this is one I take every day. I take the advanced TRS on the left. That's a little bit better than the one on the right, the ACZ nanozeolites, but these are both really phenomenal products. They're not cheap. They're about, I think the advanced TRS is like $68 a bottle, and it'll last typically a few months. You only take a tiny amount of this stuff too. I learned a long time ago, by the way, and this is a little warning, don't overdo zeolites. Take, when you start taking them, take maybe a little bit below the recommended dose and work your way up to the recommended dose. Don't go over the recommended doses, because these things can dehydrate the body and they can cause heart arrhythmias and things like that. Years ago, I was doing zeolites and I thought it would be really gung-ho and do big doses, and I almost had a heart attack. So don't overdo it on the zeolites. Now another really cool one is, of course, probably a lot of you have heard that we need to be taking an iodine to feed the thyroid. Radioactive elements like cesium and radioactive iodine, they will get loaded into the thyroid and then cause thyroid cancer and other problems. Lots of other problems well before you ever get cancer. When you see people with thinning hair, particularly women, and just tons and tons of issues come from thyroid problems. feeding the thyroid is one thing that needs to be done, but you also have to detoxify the thyroid and heal the thyroid. If it's latched on to radioactive particles, you may not know it, and you wind up with cancer, years down the road. So it's not enough just to feed the thyroid with iodine, but you also need to detoxify and heal it with herbs. So anyway, there's a monoatomic iodine is the kind of iodine that I prefer because it's 100% metabolized and it's extremely regenerative to the body. It's very detoxifying to the body too. It's not just a mineral for the thyroid. It really detoxes you. The iodine that you want to get is called nascent iodine. And these particular brands, the one on the left is superior to any others I know of because it's monoatomic iodine and it's been programmed with the anti-frequencies of all known radioactive elements. So not only does it feed the thyroid and detoxify the body, but it also neutralizes radioactivity in the body, which I think is really cool. So I take that stuff every day. There's also a less expensive one called detoxidine or detoxidine from GHC Health, and that's another one that I like. I don't have time for any questions. You can ask me questions at my booth after my talk. Now, liposomal vitamin C has been proven in Fukushima and in Chernobyl to be extremely effective at removing radiation from the body. So this is a little bit different than regular vitamin C supplements sold on the market. It's been the vitamin C has been bonded to lipids, and it's completely metabolized by the body. Apple pectin powder, also a really great one. Apple pectin has been proven in Fukushima to be extremely effective at pulling radiation out of the body, and it's ridiculously cheap. It used to be a lot cheaper until I started recommending it. Now I've noticed these people have jacked the price up on it, but it's about 16 bucks a pound now. So I buy like 5-pound bags of this, and I put it in a drink or a juice every day. Charcoal, food-grade activated charcoal is also a really good one. What are known as the transuranic elements, the radioactive elements from uranium on up on the periodic chart, they are large enough that zeolites can't pull them out of the body. So you've got to use, but they also don't get into the brain and other parts of the body because they're so large. So you can pull them out of the GI tract with charcoal and also with clays. I like sacred clay because not only it's like Morlanite clay and it will pull toxins and heavy metals out of the gut, but it has ormus in it, so you're getting ormus with it as well. Also, more commonly available ones, Sunny 7, which is available in most health food stores, that's bentonite clay, and Morlanite clay. Those clays are also extremely good at pulling this stuff out of the gut.
How about diatomaceous earth?
Diatomaceous earth is fine, but these work better, so I prefer them. You can make your own powder mixture of all of these to remove this stuff out of your gut and take it on a daily basis. And again, I highly recommend doing this on a daily basis. I just don't throw it in a smoothie because this stuff will, if you mix it with fruit, it'll ferment in your gut and feed pathogens, so you don't want to do that. But you can put it in a green drink or water or whatever. I just make a cocktail of stuff and I throw in algae and various things. And I vortex mine in a device called a water vitalizer. And this is not in your slides if you want to write this down, but there's a device called a water vitalizer that will vortex water in a magnetic field, in a strong magnetic field, and that creates ormus. So if you throw supplements into it in the water, it will bring the ormus out, make it more bioavailable if there's any in there, and it also makes minerals much more bioavailable. Now, this is our silver bullet for these pathogens, whether it's Morgellons pathogens or biowarfare agents or whatever. And if you Google this, you're going to see a lot of FDA warning letters, which should be a sign to you that it's really good. Chlorine dioxide. This was developed, or I should say it was rediscovered by a man named Jim Humble, who was in Africa working on large water projects, municipal water projects out in the middle of nowhere, hundreds of miles from civilization, or what we call civilization. And he and his crew came down with malaria. And they got it so bad that they were in danger of dying from it, and all they had on hand were some water treatment chemicals. So they mixed them up with a little water and drank it down, and lo and behold, they got rid of malaria in 4 hours. Now, I don't know if you guys know how difficult malaria is to get rid of with conventional medicine, but I had a friend that got malaria in India, and it took him a year to get rid of it, and it ruined his health along the way because he was taking so many antibiotics. This stuff is amazing. It is bleach, so if anybody says, well, that stuff's toxic, it's bleach. Yes, it is bleach. It's not like Clorox, but it smells and looks like Clorox. But when you put it, just a few drops, into water or juice, and you ingest it, it's converted in the GI tract into massive amounts of oxygen. And oxygen is one of the ways that you kill these pathogens. They are generally anaerobic, and so if you surround them with oxygen, they die off. There are multiple ways to target pathogens, and specifically just pathogens. One is to surround them with oxygen. One is to destroy certain protein structures that they all have in common, and the other is charge. They all have a negative charge on them. So there's various ways of targeting just pathogens in the body and not hurting the beneficial microbes in the body. This is one of them. And I'm going to tell you, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. You know, it used to be, years ago when I was not aware of this stuff and I was working in the corporate world, I'd usually have to take a week of my vacation time to heal up from a flu bug. And this is like 30 years ago. And this stuff, you know, now I don't get flus, but if I get a biowarfare agent or something in my body, usually within 36 hours or so, I'm good. If I get a really, really nasty one and I'm so violently ill that I can't hold this stuff in my stomach, I have solutions for that now as well. But I got one biowarfare bug, I mean, it was so nasty, I couldn't walk for a week, and I was laid up in bed around the clock, just in intense pain. So some of these can be very virulent. But this is just a magic bullet if you can hold it in your stomach. If you get so sick that you can't hold it in your stomach, there are other things that you can do. And it's ridiculously cheap, too. A 6-month supply of this stuff's like 25 bucks. I prefer the chlorine dioxide solution over what is being called miracle mineral solution or miracle mineral supplement. CDS tastes a lot better than the MMS. And it's pre-mixed, so you don't have to mix it. The other one you have to mix, and you have to be very careful with the dosages and things like that. The CDS, you shoot it into a glass of lemonade sweetened with stevia, you drink it down, and you're good to go. I always take this stuff when I travel. I have a first aid kit that I always carry with me wherever I go in case I encounter radioactivity or pathogens or whatever. And the moment that I start getting a sore throat or anything, feeling a little bit tired, I start hitting it with this and a few other things, and it never happens. I don't have time to talk about GC math. But I don't recommend it. It's very expensive and it doesn't work that well compared to other things. Okay, so this is another one from restandrepair.com, Microblast. This one I'll just tell you, you can put it on soil and use it for agriculture. You can mix it with water and use it for agriculture. But it also now is being sold as a parasite cleanse. And so it's very effective at breaking down pathogens and parasites in the body by their protein structure. Now, marijuana. Nobody wants to call it marijuana anymore. It's like MTC, CBD, you know, got all these. Man, when I was back in the day, we used to eat this stuff. We just called it pot. Now everybody's worried about what you call it because of the FDA, but it's still as good as it ever was. And these two particular brands I've used, and I like them and I recommend them. They're very good at healing all kinds of stuff, including removing radiation from the body. Holden's Hope Hemp Paste at hemppaste.com and Charlotte's Web Botanicals. They both have different effects. I think the hemp paste is a lot stronger, which isn't necessarily a good thing if you're trying to work. Because I started out with the Charlotte's Web stuff, and I was taking it while I worked, and I felt great, you know, and it was really just gave me energy and did a lot of things. And then I took the hemp paste, and it really mellowed me out. It reminded me of back in the old days. I did a lot. I was what you'd call a volumetric drinker in college and in high school. I actually got into pot in junior high school, so I was like a volumetric smoker in junior high and high school, and then a volumetric drinker in college. So I did a lot of this stuff. I had a friend who was a smuggler, so I could have all the pot I wanted, which was great, I have to tell you. And so, you know, I've done a little bit of this stuff, and so I ate some of the hemp paste, and you know, it mellowed me out. I kind of, like I said, felt like the old days, like, wow, this is great, but, you know, I got to work. And then the next day, I took a double dose of it, and I pretty much didn't care about work at all. But it is some good stuff for healing. And also, the FDA has got a new commissioner, and they are probably going to start cracking down on this stuff. So I would say snag some while you can. It may not be available for long. Now, as I mentioned, if you get so sick that you can't take in the MMS, there are things that you can do that will kill these pathogens and get you well enough that you can take them and get better, or at least get up to the point where you can take the MMS or CDS. And silver is one of my favorites. It tastes like water. It doesn't upset the stomach at all. This is what saved me when I got my first biowarfare bug. It seems like Spirit always sends me the really nasty ones first, so I get really, really sick, and then I have to like really, really work hard to figure out how to deal with it. And then later I get it again, and it's like, well, it's not so bad. But this is a really good one. I like accelerated silver on the left. I've found it's a lot better than other silvers on the market that I've used, and I'll probably start selling it soon because I've just had phenomenal results with it. All these things I'm recommending, by the way, I don't like read stuff on the internet and then go recommending them. I test everything on myself and my family and my friends and clients for months before I ever, and I do good old-fashioned lab tests and SKIO analysis and things like that. So I know this stuff works. I'm not, just reading stuff and regurgitating it. Dr. Mercola, who's a friend and a neighbor of mine, he's got a silver solution. It's nano silver. And by the way, and his is good. He's got a good one. And by the way, some people were asking me about, colloidal versus ionic versus nano silver and all this stuff. You cannot go by whatever they're calling it. What you have to go by is the particle size of the silver. Because whatever they're calling it, they may be inaccurate. You want angstrom or monoatomic silver. And what that means is angstrom silver or any kind of an ionic or colloidal solution. Angstrom is when you've got just a few atoms of the metal in one particle, like a dozen or less particles in one, atoms in one particle. That's angstrom. When you've got individual atoms in a particle, those are monoatomic, and they're the most healing and the most powerful. So Mercola's got a good one. Now another thing, this is really good. If you get a pathogenic infection, one of the things that they like to do, microbes are very, very smart. They're way smarter than we give them credit for. They actually talk to each other using scalar waves and radio waves and different kinds of biochemical markers and things. But they communicate with each other, and they plot and plan against you. So they will grow and grow and grow in your body, but they won't attack until your immune system gets weak and you're vulnerable. And scientists are studying this. It's not like some new age woo-woo nonsense. Scientists, if you want to Google this, Google quorum sensing, Q-U-O-R-U-M, quorum sensing, and you can see what scientists are saying about how these microbes talk to each other. So they just sit there and eat, and they grow, and they grow, and grow, and then they attack your ass when you're not eating right, or when you get sick. So while you're sleeping, they're growing and regrouping. They're like, oh man, he's not hitting us with that stuff now, we can grow some more. Well, so you can do something about that. While you're sleeping, before you go to bed, you take a few capsules of this oxy powder intestinal cleanse, and it will flood the GI tract with oxygen, and that will knock these pathogens down while you're sleeping. So you'll get better much faster by doing this. Another thing you can use is a Bob Beck type parasite zapper. Now I found that the Bob Beck style work better than Hulda Clark's version, and so I prefer them. WorldWithoutParasites.com, you can get one from Don Croft, and he has pretty good ones. They're about 130 bucks. Basically, there's little copper plates there. You put that side up against your body, and you can ace bandage it on or tuck it between your pants and your abdomen. And it puts out a square wave frequency that you don't feel unless you're really toxic. You might feel a little bit of a stinging, but that will kill pathogens. They really hate it. Now, another thing you want to do is to crowd out these bugs with probiotics. And so I sell various probiotics on my website, but you can also, I teach people how to make your own. And there's a product from a Japanese professor named Tiro Ihiga called Effective Microorganisms, which I'll get into a little bit more in a moment. But you can actually take that and mix it with molasses and water, and you can make gallons and gallons of this stuff yourself. So for like 25 bucks, you can buy a quart of this stuff. You spend 10 bucks on a quart of organic molasses, throw it in 5 gallons of water, and in 3 weeks you got 5 gallons of probiotic, and you can guzzle it like it's going out of style. Now, as I mentioned previously, the QXCI SKIO, it's a quantum device. The newer version of this is called the Indigo. This is the device that can identify a lot of these biowarfare bugs and a lot of other things. It's really unreal. And it's because this scalar energy, what scientists are calling scalar energy, it is consciousness. It is the energy of consciousness. The stuff that we see flying out of the centers of galaxies, which I'm going to show you in a moment, that come to us, the stuff that's passing through everything, it's really God consciousness is what it is. And so this device, you know, when you look at matter, all the elements on the periodic chart, they vibrate at different rates. You know, a hydrogen atom has a specific vibrational frequency at its subatomic level. Oxygen has a certain vibrational frequency at the subatomic level. And again, this is conventional physics. This is nothing, you know, advanced at all or unusual. Scientists know that the subatomic particles of these elements vibrate at certain frequencies. So for example, if you know the frequency of hydrogen and you know the frequency of oxygen and you put two hydrogens together on oxygen, it's going to have an overall frequency and you can measure it and identify it as water. So this is the basis of this machine. It looks at the subatomic vibrational frequency of everything in your body and it can identify them based on what it's looking at, and it can tell if you've got toxins or heavy metals or biowarfare agents or emotional issues with your parents. It can see cellular memory of stuff because it's stored in consciousness, and it's also stored chemically. It's stored in various ways. It's stored energetically in the body, and it has a vibrational signature that this thing can pick up. It can even pick up ghosts in the room, believe it or not, because they are discarnate entities or other kinds of non-physical entities. They are just organisms that are operating outside of our three-dimensional vibrational range. So it's a really amazing device, and this is how I can identify a lot of these things with some other testing, but this is the cheap way to do it. It's like typically 150, 200 bucks for a 2-3 hour session with one of these machines. It's unreal what it can pick up. Now, so we know how to get this stuff out of the body. I prefer for it to never come down in my environment to begin with. So when the Fukushima disaster happened, first thing I was thinking is, I wonder if this was engineered, because I've worked with free energy and I see how things really work behind the scenes. And so I went and Googled Fukushima scalar weapon. And one of the first things that came up was the Secretary of Finance of Japan stating on record, being interviewed by the editor-in-chief of Forbes China. And he was saying that the United States had used a scalar weapon to create the Fukushima earthquake that damaged the reactors. And he said that this was not the first time, that the United States had done it 2 times before in order to blackmail Japan into economic policies against China to prevent China from their currency becoming the world's reserve currency. Now, for those of you that don't know what a reserve currency is, that is the currency that countries use to do business between themselves. And right now, for most of the planet, that is the US dollar. So the moment that the US dollar is no longer the reserve currency of the world, we're toast. Because we can just print up monopoly money and go buy stuff. Other countries actually have to have real resources and trade their currencies in order to buy what they want to get. So the United States seriously doesn't want the dollar to no longer be the reserve currency, and they're willing to kill for it. And apparently that's what happened, according to the Minister of Finance. So that didn't surprise me. I said, okay, I've seen this kind of stuff before. What can we do about it? So then I started Googling to see if anybody was using, if you can use scalar energy as a weapon, why not use it for healing? So I checked to see if there was anybody using it to neutralize radioactivity, and in fact, I found that there were. And as it turns out, I had a big piece of that technology already. I was already selling it.